now. Yeah. How's it going? My name's Graham Hayes. I'm the Designate PTL, and welcome to the project update for the Designate project for the Queen cycle. This is going to be a short update for reasons that I will go into in the update, but I generally prefer actually a more interactive questions answers anyway. So Designate was started in 2012 to provide DNS services to a private cloud running in Dublin. It was then put into production in the HP public cloud in 2013, and soon after that was added to OpenStack as an official project as part of the Big Tent migration. The most recent user survey, the one came out yesterday, we are actually deployed in production in 12% of production clouds, OpenStack clouds. This is up from about 8% 6 months ago and 6% a year ago, which is pretty good. We worried about adoption, but I think things like we're adding adding DNS and Designate to the interop guidelines. I think a lot of people are getting ready for that. So Pike wasn't a great cycle. Literally, we kept the gate running. The majority of the team was not employed to work on Designate, so it was an evening and weekend role. That's changed since. Some of us have actually gotten jobs working on it full time now, but as a result, Pike, not a lot got done. We kept it running, nothing broke, but that was pretty much the highlight of the release, which is unfortunate. So this cycle, it's looking a lot better. We've already completed all of the Queen's goals for the community goals, so we have a Tempest plugin, which we actually already had, and all of our policy is now defaulted into code, and we're using the new Oslo policy syntax and formats. And we also have much better documentation for all the policy checks as a result. The Pike goals are the next up on the list to complete. The WYSI for the API isn't finished yet, but it should be done relatively soon. It's a relatively small change. And Python 3.5 should work now, but we need to set up a gate to test it. Once that's done, we'll be at the same level as most of the other OpenStack projects. This cycle will also mark the actual removal of the V1 API. It's been turned off by default now for 3 cycles, I think. And that code is causing a lot of extra complexity, so it will be deleted this cycle. All of the dashboard, the OpenStack client integrations, they all use the V2 API, as does the Neutron integration that calls into Designate, and the Heat objects all use the V2 API. Terraform and Ansible and Kubernetes and Gopher Cloud all also use the V2 API. So there's no, unless you have custom tooling, there shouldn't be an issue. If this is going to be a massive pain point for anyone removing this API, please let us know, but it will be turned off. We're adding there's the interop team, which is how you get certification to say that your cloud is OpenStack powered, are adding a set of add-on tests. So if you have an OpenStack powered public cloud or private cloud or product, and you also ship Designate, you will also be able to say you have a OpenStack powered cloud with DNS. And we think that's going to go to the board in January and be part of the next set of guidelines. Most of what I've been doing for the last, since I started the new job, has been documentation. We'd fallen behind a lot, and there was things we hadn't actually documented how to run Designate in the HA. It was a lot of tribal knowledge, and that's the main job that we've been doing this cycle. And also removing 2 services that previously, they've already been replaced, and they've been in deprecation mode for 3 cycles as well. So the majority of the cycle is cleaning up and removing extra complexity and technical debt, so we can continue on to the future. We have many possibilities. Previously, Designate was worked on by 2 major public clouds, and then a private cloud vendor and a public cloud vendor. And so we had very defined goals. We're now more open to getting feedback from the community about what they want us to do. So we have a session tomorrow at 1:50 upstairs, room 409. It's a session we run every summit where we ask for feedback on what features we should be doing. So if you've any ideas what we should do, I know there was some ideas from the project onboarding session yesterday. Please come along. If anything's working particularly well, please come along and let us know as well, so we don't do anything to break it. And yeah, basically, the more feedback we get, the better we can make Designate. And part of the long-term goal is to improve our cross-project integrations. So right now, there's an integration between Neutron and Designate, where if you create a Neutron network, assign a DNS name to it, and create a port and assign a DNS name to the port, when you attach a floating IP to that port, it'll create the A record, and it'll also create the reverse DNS records. And it does that all automatically, and it's all dealt with. Neutron knows to call us and tell us what records to update. Unfortunately, there's some limitations. It doesn't work as well with provider networks. It's a gap that's been highlighted to me this week. And people wanted the support for multiple DNS domains per network. So each project having the ability to set which DNS domain they want on that network. So that'll be part of the long-term work. It's not going to be quick. Getting the initial integration merged took 2.5 years. So we'll be working on it, but it won't be something that'll turn up in Queens or even Rocky probably. What we can do ourselves is we also have support for managing reverse DNS for flooding IPs. So right now, there's even a Horizon panel you can enable that a tenant can go into the DNS section of Horizon and look at all the flooding IPs they have and assign reverse DNS names to them. When we wrote it, people didn't use provider networks the way they are now as direct access external networks, and we only support floating IPs. So what we want to add is the ability to add provider networks fixed IPs as well, so people can set the reverse DNS for those. Obviously, there'll always be work across all the Oslo projects as well as we find things we need to do. But these are the 2 main pieces of cross-project integration we're aiming to do. So if you have feedback, there's the session tomorrow. I'm always in OpenStack DNS and Freenode. I may not be awake, but I have a bouncer, so leave a message and I'll get back to you. The OpenStack development list is always open, or that's my email. If you want to just shout at me for something that we've done, please do, so I know what we need to change. And yeah, so one of the major issues we've had was, as I said, last cycle we didn't have any paid contributors really. We have one now with more starting, but we do need more team members. But we don't need short-term team members. We need people who will be involved in the project for a minimum of a year or so. We need people who have the ability to do code review and to be core reviewers. And unfortunately, that's not something you can pick up in a month. So if anyone has resources and you use Designate, or you're a vendor shipping Designate, having resources would really help. It doesn't necessarily have to be full-time. We ran we ran it quite successfully between ourselves at HP and Rackspace in previous years, where we all had internal work. We also worked upstream. It's a good thing for companies to get involved in the community. We've been highlighted by the technical committee as one of the top 5 priorities that we need sponsoring companies to work on. There's a top 5 list, including things like documentation, ourselves, Glance, Infra. We're on that list as something that needs help. Designate isn't going to go away, but it isn't going to get dramatically better without help. And this session in Boston consisted of 2 of us standing up saying we weren't paid to be here. So this is an improvement, but I'd like to bring it further. So that's please give us developers. It's the gist of it. When they want to join, there's a weekly IRC meeting. The time is about to change because we've had more interest from people in different time zones. So our meeting time was very unfriendly to anyone in the Asia Pacific area. Jump into the IRC channel. There's generally people there, or ask questions. Use the mailing list. We also have on our bug tracker on Launchpad, we have a set of tags. Low-hanging fruit is bugs we think that would be good for people to start with. So they're not hugely complex, but they get you an idea of how the code's laid out and what you need to do in Designate. Obviously, documentation is a priority for us, but sometimes you need an outside perspective. So as people are starting to run the project or to starting to contribute, if they keep note of what they've done and where our docs were wrong or where they could be improved, and then improve them as they go forward, that'd be great. Even just trying to start the project, boot it up in a test environment to see how it integrates with the rest of your environment, with the rest of your installed OpenStack software. That's all very valuable for us. I'd much prefer to get bug reports than people just walk away and say it doesn't work. So if you start it up and let us know what's broken, we're relatively responsive on bugs, and we do our best to get them fixed as fast as we can. And if you have experience running Designate, and you're in the RC channel, you see people asking questions, please feel free to answer them. We don't stand in ceremony. Don't wait for somebody you think is part of the project to answer. If you know the answer, please jump in and answer. It's the best way for more people to get involved. And with that, it's Q&A.
From distribution,
Yeah.
distribution point of view, is that fair to say the Pike release more like a tech preview from their point of view?
I would.
Repeat the question.
Sorry, the question is from a distribution release, was Pike considered a tech preview?
The Designate in Pike.
Yeah, Designate in Pike. Was that considered a tech preview? No. Well, HP's been shipping Designate as part of its distro since Icehouse. I'm not sure what SUSE has done with it, but it was definitely part of the Helium distribution since Icehouse. We ran it in production in Juno, in a public cloud. It's been production ready for a long time. The tech preview, there is certain distributions that have labeled it a tech preview, mainly because they don't have any staff to support it. They're calling it a tech preview, but they don't have the ability to actually support the software, so they won't put it into the main distribution.
I'm not an engineer, but I thought there were a lot of critical bugs and high importance but outstanding in Pike release.
There's 2 scales. There's bugs that what the question was: is there a lot of outstanding bugs in the Pike release? Critical bugs. There's a lot of bugs that have a high severity but low impact. The bugs that are marked as critical are the highest priority bugs we have, but they're not blocking the operation of the product. Any other questions?
So the dashboard, the Horizon dashboard is also the responsibility of the Designate team?
Yes.
Do you happen to know when the dashboard started supporting the V2 APIs? I believe I'm running the Mitaka dashboard, which I think only works with the
I think it was Mitaka we merged the preview of it, so you can enable it in Mitaka. There's two more. There's two panels which are the V1 panels, and there's two panels which are the V2 panels. I don't remember off the top of my head what exact. I think it was Mitaka we put the first preview. Okay, no, you may need to put the enable files for the new panels into the dashboard. No problem. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I'm around all week. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email if you want to chat about anything. Thank you.